Okay, what we want to do here for a few minutes is take a look at optimizing Windows. I guess part of this one should go relatively quickly because this is things that I've already asked you to do in your virtual machines to make them a little more efficient. So what this does is kind of cuts out some of the fading in, fading out, turn off arrow, all of the things that take resources, and allows the computer to operate a little more efficiently. So the objective is learn about Windows utilities and tools you can use to solve problems with Windows. There are a number of built-in ones. There are also, and I think I probably said it before, SysInternals is a place that you ought to go and get their free tools package. They've got a whole set of tools there for Windows that you can download for free. It used to be an independent Windows bottom, so yeah, Windows still has them, but they really haven't done anything to affect the tools that are available. There's a lot of them there for both workstations working on up through Active Directory. SysInternals.com. Yeah. Learn how to optimize Windows to improve performance and how to manually remove software. I was just reading some comments that some people have recently taken the A+ certification test, and one of them, a couple of the comments talked about some of the tools that we're going to talk about here tonight that you have to do on it. One of them, MSconfig, and that's one of the tools that we'll talk about tonight, to take something out of the startup menu. What do you do after you remove a virus? Things like that. So these are the things that A, yeah, you need to know how to do to make it more, to make the machines more efficient, and B, you need to know how to do to pass the test also. Utilities in the OS, some in this, the Windows Shell, Task Manager, System Configuration, the MSconfig, which has been around for a long time. This is the one that you can look and see what's in the startup, both in the startup folder as well as what starts automatically from the registry. And you can take them out here. Say, no, I don't want this one to start. You just uncheck it. It'll go through and do those things. The one I was telling you about, CCleaner, you can do the same thing with it too. So there are a number of tools that will do that. The Services Console, what's running, the Computer Management Console itself, a lot of stuff in there. We'll take a look at some of that stuff. The Microsoft Management Console, MMC, they just kind of threw that in. The MMC is just a shell that you then put what you want, the tools that you want into it. Event Viewer, Reliability Performance Monitor is a much improved tool in Windows 7. Actually, they put it in Windows Vista, but nobody paid a whole lot of attention to Vista. But it's a much better tool than it has been in the past. We didn't have a performance monitor. We had perfmon. We didn't have a reliability monitor. Reliability monitor tracks errors, and it'll keep building itself up to get to the top end. You have an error, it drops back down. What it allows you to do is look and see what happened on particular days. So it does keep a history of things like software installs when the software crashed, things like that. And then the Registry Editor. You have a lab for Registry Editor. Yeah, go ahead and do what it says. Be careful when you're editing the registry. That is the place that you can make your Windows machine not work for the rest of your life. So the recommendation always is, and still is, always has been, always will be, make a copy, back the registry up before you start fooling with it. Don't just go in and start editing it helter-skelter. Sometimes you have to. We've had things here, diseases that machines got that the only way that was to get rid of it was to go in and actually do a manual edit. Or occasionally installs get stuck and you have to go in and take out the, yes, I'm still installing the software, because you can't do it because it says you can't do this one because it's already in progress. Well, it's not really in progress. It failed, but the registry didn't get changed to say that it failed. It got changed to say that we started the install and we're still going with it. Occasionally you have to do things like that. Shell and the kernel. What is a shell? What is a shell? The shell that you used in DOS was the DOS shell, the command prompt. The shell is what we interact with. The Windows, the Explorer that we use here. The kernel, known as the core of the operating system, the kernel is the core of the operating system that's loaded into memory. the stuff that's going to call everything else. When we talk about the hard drive activity, Windows is too big to load the whole operating system into the memory. So we load the kernel, the core in, and then it calls the components as it needs it. And I think I told you that way back when we were doing DOS 3.0, 5.0, 6.0, you could actually delete the whole operating system, and it would still run until you needed something that was on that hard drive, or until you turned it off and turned it back on, it wasn't there anymore. So a lot of it's in memory, some of it's not in memory. Two main components, the HAL, the hardware abstraction layer, and the executive services. The hardware abstraction layer are hardware-specific drivers that get created. It's a file that gets created when you install the system. Advantage to virtual machines, this really doesn't have any effect on virtual machines. What this says is that you can't take the hard drive from one chipset, really, to another chipset and have the system run. So that's the HAL, is the hardware-specific hardware abstraction layer is a hardware-specific layer closest to the hardware. And then we have the executive services, and it operates between the user mode, us, and the hardware abstraction layer. The hardware abstraction layer is the one that actually gets access to the hardware. The applications in Windows, ever since Windows 2000, don't get direct access to hardware. And then Windows 2000 really upset a lot of game writers because they like to write their programs to the hardware. And it installed this isolation barrier between us and it. Process is a program manages applications. We have processes. A program is running under the authority of the shell. Programs in Windows run with whatever permissions that the user that's logged on has. Does that make any sense? If you're logged on as an administrator, the program has administrative authority. If you're logged on as a minion user, it has minion user authority. Minion user is good because minion users can't install software, which means that minion users can't install viruses. That is an advantage to that. A process makes a request for resources to the Windows 32 subsystem. The request is known as a thread. So a process is a function, really, a program they talk about. A thread is a part of it. A thread goes to get resources, and they talk about in the book, a thread might be a print job, would be a thread from the application or from the process itself. Thread's a single task, such as printing a file that the processor requests from the kernel. Sometimes a process is called an instance, but a thread is a single action that happens with a process. This is kind of the way it goes. The process here is one word. The threads would be print a job or open a file. Goes into the Windows 32 subsystem. This is going to be the executive services. Goes to the Windows 32 subsystem. I'm sorry, not the executive services. Goes to the kernel. The kernel then operates, controls, communicates with the hardware, and that's what this is showing. There is lots of isolation redundancy. One of the things that this does for us, in the good old bad old days, if you had a bad piece of software and it got a hold of your processor, it owned the processor. And the only way that you could get it out of the processor was to restart the machine. In the better days with this isolation, we can go into Task Manager, we can shut these things down one at a time. Back to the bad old days, good old days, bad old days, in the we're talking about pre-Windows 95, pre-Windows NT 4.0. If you hit the Control-Alt-Delete keys, it restarted the machine. Now if you hit the Control-Alt-Delete keys, it brings up the Task Manager so that you can control the processes that are going on, the applications that are running in the system. The Task Manager displays applications and processes. Several different ways to start it here. Control-Alt-Delete, right-click a blank area in the taskbar, Control-Shift-Escape. On the Start, use the Task Manager exit. While we're here, I think what I like to do, and you probably have used these before, but let's take a look at each of these tools, or try to, as we get to them, if I can get to it. So if I could find a place on my taskbar, I could right-click on it. There I go, and start Task Manager. The Task Manager has some tabs up here. The applications that are running, I've got up here it says A+801, I've got a folder open, so that's going to be a file access. I've got PowerPoint running, devices and printers, Screencast-O-Matic, which I'm recording with here, and then I have Notepad open. So the applications in the processes, we have a whole bunch of things in here that support the processes. A couple of things that we can look at if you start having issues with stuff, with things, what's taking the resources. I just sorted this thing. I clicked on the memory column and it sorted it by memory. Java here is taking the biggest chunk of memory that this machine's running. After that, PowerPoint's taking, 75 meg, and then Explorer, and we work our way on down to what's using how much. The other thing that's happening here, and the reason Java's taking so much, the Screencast-O-Matic that I'm running is a Java application, so that's why Java is running on this machine. But it's taking a lot of resource. PowerPoint is taking some processors. This one's CPU. I guess we could spread these out a little bit since there's plenty of room here to look at it now, huh? So you can spread these things out. I don't know, go that far, huh? To see what they are, and then we have a description over here of each of the things that are running. So these are the processes that are running on this machine, and there's a bunch of them. There's always going to be a lot of processes running, and if you, for some reason, it gets slowed down unacceptably, look and see what's taking all your resources, what's taking the memory, what's taking the CPU cycles. The services that are running on it are here. These are in alphabetic order, and these are services, and we can sort the services by running, just clicking on the running and go down. We have a bunch of them that are running and a bunch of them that are stopped. We can stop the service, go to the processes that are there, and here we can end processes in the process tree. The process tree is that process and everything that's associated with it, everything that's supporting it. Or you can just end that one. Performance, what's going on with my processors and with my memory. This gives us an instantaneous look at what's going on with those. So we get that, and down here at the bottom we get a little summary. The physical memory, 3069, is the total cached, available, and free. And then we have kernel memory, paged and non-paged. Page memory, remember we created the page memory with the page file. We talked a little bit, very briefly last time about that. Page file.sys. The page file is a spot on the hard drive that is mapped as memory. That's used there. And then the system, we have the handles and the threads. This one's got 1,250 threads. We just talked about threads. That's quite a few individual activities that are going on. Networking, what's going on with your networking? This one's showing several different NICs. I've got a wireless NIC, a local NIC, Bluetooth that I've got plugged in here, and then I have a couple of NICs. Users, which users are logged on to the machine. So that is Task Manager. And down here I have a disconnect and a log off if I want to do something clever like that. That's with the user. If I wanted to disconnect or to log this user off, I could do that. I'm not going to do it since it's me. But if somebody were connected to your machine, or if you want a server had multiple users, you can do that. The difference between disconnect and log off is when you log off, it shuts down all the processes that user has running. When you disconnect, it just disconnects you and all those processes keep running. So let's say that you're doing something on a machine at home and you don't want to sit there and watch it and somebody else wants to log on. You can obviously switch users, but you can disconnect, and those processes, that stuff will keep running, and then they can go do things with that machine. So the Task Manager is a handy tool. Lots of different things there. The way we get there, right-click, Control-Alt-Delete, type Task Manager, Control-Shift-Escape. So multiples. This one's got 4 different ways to get into it. About everything in Windows is going to have at least 2 different ways to do anything. So the Task Manager, the Process tabs, we looked at all of those things already. The Networking tab, Administrative Tools. The administrative tools are in the Control Panel. I guess we can look at that, then we'll look at MSconfig here. So administrative tools, we'll get rid of some of those processes there. Control Panel. You can also, if you right-click down here and go on Properties, I don't like to go to Control Panel every time. Properties, Start Menu, and Customize. If we go down to the bottom, here it says Administrative Tools, displaying the All Programs, displaying the programs, and the Start menu. I've got more administrative tools on this machine than you're going to have because mine has the remote management tools for Active Directory. One of the big deal tools is computer management. And you notice I got the user access control. It said, did I do this? And the answer is yes, I did this. So I said, okay, go ahead and start up. Go ahead and try to start up, I guess. There we go. Finally. In here we have a consolidation of everything. When they talked about earlier about the MMC, if we didn't have any of this stuff over here, if we didn't have any of the actual tools installed, that'd be the MMC. It's just a blank shell. And then you can add snap-ins. And the computer configuration is a pre-configured MMC with the snap-ins already in it. We're not going to manage it because the system's going to own it. So in this one, we can look at Task Scheduler. What is scheduled to run on the machine? As detected an error in a snap-in, and will unload it. Oh, goody. So it didn't like my task scheduler, did it? We could look at Event Viewer then. Event Viewer is the place that we're going to see logs and what's going on with logs. And this machine's probably got a bunch of them because it's been running for a while and the logs haven't been cleaned out. It'll take a long time for these to set up. Application, the one that we're probably the most concerned with would be the security log. To get into a security log, you've got to be an administrator. So you can look at the logs there. Applications and services logs, all sorts of logs here. Shared folders, if I had created shares, and there are some shares that are created. In the Windows world, anything that has a $sign after it is what's called a hidden share, which means it's there, it just doesn't show up in that BIOS. Hidden share. Huh? Let me do it. The way you get to a share, let's see, this one's got a couple of shares. It's got one here called Demo. If I go to Start Run, //, and I'll just do 127.0.0.1, that is the local host. That's always the address of your local computer. It's called the local host address. So 127.0.0.1 is always going to be the computer that you're on. So if I do that, the // tells me to go there. I have a number of shares here, A+, new data, users, demo, security stuff, and share. Those are all for demos during Windows classes. I also have some things here called like G$, F$, and E$, C$. They didn't show up. They didn't show up because those are the hidden shares. So if I go to this thing, let's see if I can really mess this up, // 127.0.0.1, /G was one of them, right? G$. I am now seeing the entire listing from the root of that drive, the G drive. It's hidden share, but it is shared. It's a default share, hidden share created by Windows. Every drive has a share, but it's hidden. And, oh yeah, that's another one you need to be an administrative authority to get into it. I just went to my local machine, so I didn't have the authority to do it. If I went someplace else, I would have to log on. Local users and groups are here. Sessions are, well, we'll do sessions. Sessions is who's connected to your machine. You can see who's connected. And I'm the only one connected to my machine. You're not going to get a whole lot in a workstation because you're only allowed one connection at a time. Open files, if somebody had files open, they would show up here. Users are down here. These are the local users. Administrator, you'll notice, is not disabled on this computer. Because we had some issues with it, we had to enable it to get in because it got locked out a couple of times during a wireless class because of some networking. What would happen is timeout on the wireless and it can't get to the domain controller, so you couldn't log back in. So you had to log in as the local administrator in order to reset all of that. But the users are here, the groups are here, performance tabs here, monitoring tools, performance monitor. We have this thing, and we might as well look at this while we're here. I guess we'll get to it in a second. We can add stuff here. We can add counters, and when we add counters, we can use things that are on our local computer, or you can remotely monitor. I'm not going to attempt to tell you what's in here except to go take a look. The number of things that you can monitor is large. Disk activity, disk storage, what's available, CPU activity, on and on and on is available in this thing. A data collector set is, instead of having that monitor where you just see it there for a few minutes, we'll actually save this to a file so that you can have it go back and do analysis on it. You can have a history of these things. Device manager is where we go to manage devices, obviously. You can also scan. You can take things out, put things in here, add legacy hardware, scan for hardware changes. If you're having an issue that something's not starting up, the first thing you want to try is to go here and do a scan for hardware changes to see if anything actually changed. Disk management, you've already used before, right? That's where you made the RAID in the last class. And this is where, in this class, to do that other lab, to do the migrate lab, you went in and created a partition on one of the other existing hard drives that was available in it. Services and applications. Maybe we'll get to services and applications. Services, the services that we have already looked at, same kinds of things. SQL Configuration Manager, kind of a specialized whatever here. So that's what was starting up. See, iTunes wants to update. I saw that there was an application, and I wonder why it was running for iTunes. The next thing I think on this list was MSconfig. So let's go ahead and look at it. This is one that you really do want to know about. Because when you install something on your machine, what's the first thing that it wants to do? It wants to do access your hard drive, and it wants to do automatic updates, right? To do automatic updates, it's got to run something. This one probably have a really good list. These are the services, and this is as big as this one will get. Services that are running Adobe Acrobat Update Service. Well, yeah, I guess we want to update that. You can look through the list, Flash Update, Application Experience, what services are running on the system. We can also have the ability here to hide the Microsoft and see everything else that's running on the system. What other services are running? How did we get those services going? We have a startup folder, and in the startup folder is things, a list of things that are going to get started when we start the machine up. And the location over here, HKLM software, Microsoft Windows current version, la-di-da, that stuff's all in the registry. If we didn't want some of this stuff to start up, if I didn't want virtual clone drive to start up, I would just simply uncheck it. And then when I get through, I do want it to start up. Air server, though, I think I really don't want to start up. Where is it? CCOM program files, it's here. And when we get done, it's going to Adobe Reader, ARM, let's see, Adobe Reader and Acrobat Manager is here. iTunes, it doesn't start automatically. Wind Patrol, what is there that I can make start, I can check these things, but I just uncheck the one, and if I apply it, then it should go away for us. And tools that are available about Windows, change user account control, user access control, action center. We can launch those things from this location. If you wanted to change the user account control, we can go in here. It says always notify me. You notice we have different levels that are available on it down to never notify me. Don't know that you really want to use the never notify me, because if something really bad happens, then you don't get notified. It just gets installed. I kind of like the always notify me. I make changes to programs to install to make changes to my computer, or I make changes so that it is available. But you can launch those programs from inside this thing. The boot, if we had other options, PCI lock, number of processors, one, maximum memory, those kinds of things. If we had more than one here, we could modify these things. This is not a dual boot machine, so the Windows 7 is the only boot that we actually have in this thing. The general normal startup, selective startup, load the system services, load the startup time diagnostic. We can do it, run a diagnostic setup. We can set it here. When I say OK, because I made a change to it, it says restart, which I'm not going to do. But I can also exit without restart. When the machine restarts the next time, it'll make that change, and it won't start up. The other thing that if you don't do, and you have a wife, child, whatever, if you don't tell it here, don't show this message again. Every time it starts, it'll tell you that it's made changes. So you really do want to say, just go away and leave me alone. MSconfig is one of those, and that is also one of the utilities that I have read that you will need to know how to do on that test. Don't know that that's the case, but that's what they have said. The services console. The services console itself, how did it say we get there? Go to the services console, type services in the command line. Actually, we can just type services and wait for Windows to go find it, and we have the services console itself. We looked at services in Task Manager. This one probably has a little bit more control. It has the same services, and we have extended and standard down here. Extended gives you a description over here in the left column of what the service does. So it's kind of handy to have. What kind of startup is it? This says manual. If we go into the properties of manual, provides user account control validation of the installation of ActiveX. Manual is either we start it or some service causes it to start. We have in the startup types, we'll just look at them here, automatic delayed start, which is kind of handy because when you turn on Windows and everything in the world is trying to start at the same time, it kind of gets really slow. If you do delayed start, this won't start until the operating system becomes stable. The other one's startup, which will try to start it as it starts up. Manual, which is a manual start, and disabled, it will not start until you go and make one of the other selections. The services that are available is a lengthy number if you scroll down it. So there are a lot of things that are available, some started, some not started. If you want to see what's running, you can double click to going down. Started, you can look and see what started, and if you don't want them, you can go in and stop the service right here, or you can restart the service, refresh it. All tasks is just stop and start, same things that we've had. Properties, back to what are we going to do. And the log on here can be interesting. Log on with the local system account. System is a dangerous thing. because it has some issues. If it fails, first failure, take no action. Second failure, take no action. Subsequent failures, take no action. You can set the action that you want here, run a program, restart the computer, restart the service if that particular thing fails. So lots of configuration options in that one also. The services console, something that sometimes you need to go look and see if something's running, because this doesn't work. Go see if the service is started, see if it's running. Occasionally they get disabled when you really don't want them to be disabled. Computer management we looked at already. The MMC, there's a picture. The MMC is just a shell. Actually, we can look at that too. The MMC is a blank shell that allows us to, we'll go File, Add, Remove, Snap in this thing, allows us to add the tools that we want. If we want to manage a DHCP server, we put DHCP in. If we want up here want to do Active Directory stuff, we put the Active Directory stuff in. Active Directory users and computers, group policy management, lots of different things are there. So the tools that are available, we can make our own. As you get into the management of Windows, you create one that you use for the tools that you use, so that you don't have to keep going back and restarting things. You have one that's got all of the ones that you need. You can add more than one snap-in on each of the MMCs, which makes it kind of handy to be able to do. Event Viewer is going to allow you to look at logs. I kind of went through that one quickly. I think there's an activity to look at that. You can look at logs, the different logs that are available. Application, events recorded by an application, security log, successful and unsuccessful logins to a user account. That's one that's going to give you probably the first indicator somebody's trying to hack into your machine, because it's going to have a whole bunch of login failures. If somebody's there, it could just mean that they really just forgot their password and were really persistent about it. But if you look at those logs, people that are trying to hack, you're probably going to see a bunch of attempts. And you're probably going to see a bunch of attempts at the user administrator. The user administrator is the only account that can't be locked out. It's the only one that's always there. So it's one that you probably want to leave disabled and make another user that has administrative authority to do that. That's not named administrator and doesn't have a SID of, is it 500? Doesn't have a SID of 500, so it can always be found. Task Scheduler allows us to run certain things whenever we want to do them. Probably can just get there here, huh? Task Scheduler. Let's see if this one is still mad at me. Scheduled tasks are things that can be handy. Doesn't like it. Report this error. I don't want to do that. So it is really upset. It has an issue. So it's not going to let me show it to you. The snap-in performed a non-valid operation has been unloaded, and I can look in this. It's going to tell me what the non-valid operation is. It allows you, when it's working right, to schedule when things are going to run. Your antivirus software probably runs once a week at some point in time. That's a scheduled task. You can schedule tasks for times of the day, specific times, or specific actions. Computer starts up. Somebody does one thing, do something else. And I think I talked about what we kind of do. We do at home is set the BIOS to start the computer at 6 o'clock, and then after the computer gets going, it's a scheduled task to start the email client, so that it goes and gets the email when you go to sit down at the computer. Outlook's running and the email's already been downloaded. You can schedule that to run in the scheduled task. I also used to start Internet Explorer, but it got to be such a mess. Too many things running at the same time. But whatever you want to do, all you have to do is go specify the executable, and you can run specific tasks at specific times. It's kind of a handy thing to be able to do. The registry editor, now it's really mad at me. It won't close. We'll just leave it running there. How will we get rid of it? I should be able to kill it with Task Manager, shouldn't I? Task Scheduler, processes here. Let's put them in alphabetical order. Task Manager, right? And we can end the process, we hope. And it didn't go away. Now let's go back to, I think maybe I got the wrong thing, huh? Oh, you know, I bet this is the MMC. Well, let's try it here. End task, end now. The reason, and I love Microsoft, I told it to end the task and it said, well, let me see if I can fix it for you. I didn't want you to fix it for me. I just wanted it to go away. So it did end it. The next thing that they talk about is the Registry Editor, which is Reg Edit, and there's a couple of them. I think it's a Reg Edit, yeah. Registry Editor. This thing is divided into hives, and this is one that, yep, it's a great thing. It's a cool thing to look at. It's a great thing to know about, and it's a really great thing to not really mess with a whole lot. In the Registry Editor, when you type a change in, there's no undo. There's no Control-Z. There's no going back. So when you make a change, you made the change. Be very careful. Be very careful with a Registry Editor. Huh? Once you do that, is there... You can change it back, obviously. H-key local machine hardware, software. We have a whole bunch of things that are installed on this machine. And you can see this one does have a whole bunch of stuff. It just goes on and on and on and on. Everything that gets done to the computer gets put into the registry. Registry is going to grow. Registry is a great thing. It's a single point to fix stuff. Registry is a bad thing. It's a single point to attack stuff. Registry is a single point to install a virus. And install a virus, put it in startup. We're golden, right? I now own your machine. If I put a keystroke logger on, I see every key that you type. Dangerous. Be careful of the registry. User account control helps you out a lot there, because that's one of the changes. If you're going to make changes to these things, you have to have permission to make changes to it. But and again, sometimes you do have to go in here and actually manually remove things.
They can still access your registry through a virtual machine.
The answer is depends on how you have the policy set. There is a policy settings, and we don't talk about policies in here, but there's a policy setting to not allow remote registry access, which would then prevent that. You'd have to be physically at the computer in order to change the registry. So I know that's not a yes or a no answer, but it's like most things in Windows. The answer really is maybe. It depends on how it's configured. And that's why we spend so much time with the software. One, it's what business uses, and there's just so many things that can happen. If this, then that, at least hopefully you'll know where to go to start to solve the issue. So I guess that's not probably a really good answer, but it's as good as I can do. So this is in the local machine. It has a registry. Each user that's on this machine has a user account, and they're really clear, right? Really clear who's who. These are the SIDs of these guys. One of them in here is me, and I don't know who the rest of them are. We expand this thing: app, events, network, printers, software, system, all sorts of stuff that goes on with these things. So the registry editor is there. There is also a Reg Edit 32, which has a, let's see if I can get it started, see if I can really make a fool out of myself. REGEDT 32, I believe. Well, it didn't tell me that I didn't know what I was doing. Which is just the regular Registry Editor. Now, it used to have keyboard layout. It's just going to give us it used to have read-only modes in it, but I guess that we're just in the registry editing mode now. Now that we've looked at the slides here, each key can have sub-keys, and we kind of saw that. The registry, what's there, the current user, users, the local machine, current config, classes, root. When you start up a Windows machine after it becomes logged on and stable, the registry makes a backup copy of the registry settings called a clone set. So that if you have an issue and you go back and restart the machine and start beating on the F8 key and you get that list of things that you can get into, last known configuration will be the last registry configuration where you actually got successfully logged on to Windows. That can sometimes be very handy to do if you have registry issues. And this is just the SAM hive, the security hive, the different hives that are inside each of these things. The HKey class's root is the one that does the file association, so that when you double click on a .doc file, it opens Microsoft Office. You can change that to whatever you want it to be, obviously, but that's what those are for. I think it said before, back up the registry before you do that. Use system protection to create a restore point. None of these restore points, none of these backup stuff is 100% of the time. Don't count on them working all the time to do those things. Windows Performance and Information Tools, Resource Monitor, Reliability Monitor, Performance Monitor. It says click Start, right-click Computer, select Properties in the System, Performance and Information Tools. Well, let's do it their way. There are, as usual, what was I say, Properties, and then we wanted to do Performance and Information Tools, which you would always look at the top, but Performance and Information Tools are at the bottom. You can also get here through the registry. All this is a shortcut to these things. This has some things that you may want to check out or look at. I think we've talked about this, the performance rating here, the processor. Mine's got a 3.4, and that's out of a 1 to 7.9. So this one is not a really strong computer. The rating is going to be the lowest of the individual ratings. When you do this on a virtual machine, it's not going to rate it for you. It's going to be a not-rated machine because it's a virtual machine. 3.4 because that's the graphics. 5.2, 5.4. I didn't get a 7 for anything in it. Other things are just visual effects. This is things that can help you, and this one's already the Windows default is let Windows choose what's best for my computer. Read that. Let Windows choose what's prettiest for my computer and takes the most resources to do. So maybe just me, I always go in and adjust it for best performance. The next one here is adjust indexing, processor options. I can't change this because I don't think I can change this. Maybe I can too. But you can turn off indexing. Indexing is going to take some resources. This is indexing for specific tasks. You can do that. Indexing completed. Index 534,464 items. That's going to take some resources. Crazy, isn't it? So you can change those things. Indexing options, power settings. Change power, high performance. This one is for high performance. Favors performance, but may use more energy. Don't know that this is a real. This is me talking. A real issue on a desktop because it's always plugged in. It is an issue on a laptop that's running on battery. The only thing that shows up is turn off display and put the computer to sleep. You can then go into the advanced power settings and you get a much larger list of what you can change. So you can do the power settings here. Turn the monitor off, the display off after whatever. This one's set for never. It does eventually lock, but and the display will go off then. The resource monitor. So we didn't look at the resource monitor, didn't we? RESMON.exe, resource monitor. Searching is about as easy as anything for these, to do these things. Windows really improved this. Actually started with Vista, but with these things. We get an overview here, gives us an idea of what's going on with each of our major resources, CPU, disk, and network, and we have the thumbnail over here to get a visual of it. If I click on CPU, it tells me what's running and what the process ID is, the number of threads, the CPU, the average CPU utilization, because sometimes you may look at these things and it may just have peaked. You need to look at the average CPU. If the average CPU for a process is 60 or 70%, you probably got a problem. Right now it's averaging 15% for this Java, not an outrageous number. One of the things, and James mentioned virtual machines, one of the things that virtual machines do is allow us to better use the resources. We can use the CPU at a higher percentage. It's kind of like your car. What's the load on your car engine most of the time? Not very high, right? 2,000 RPM is probably what red line's at 4 or 5 or something. So you've got a lot of reserve. Same thing happens with computers with resources, particularly the processor, a lot of reserve. The processors have gotten more and more and more and more powerful. In the world of virtualization, the most inefficient component of it is the disk utilization. That's why when everybody's trying to install at the same time or upgrade at the same time and do those sorts of things, it's driving the disk crazy, and that's the slowest part. When you're just doing things that take CPU or memory, not so much. So we can look at each of these things: disk activity, network activity, memory activity. This one is a good console. And then we can go to them individually. Associated handles, associated modules, nothing really in those. And then memory, a nice little map of memory here. The hardware reserve, got a gig. It's reserved reserved by the hardware, 1,431 meg in use, 1,594 standby, and that's going to be something that changes constantly. And the disk activity is, in fact, the disk activity. What is taking the disk activity? And you can see it here. Writes per second, write in bytes per second is the way that one's measured. And then the network connectivity. The listening ports, what's there, TCP connections, what I'm actually connected to, and the network activity. What's the throughput that's going on this machine? Let's see, the resource monitor. Reliability monitor is one that is kind of a new thing. How come I didn't? Reliability history. I didn't want to get it with REL. I had to take REL. Is generating a report. Please wait. I must have really made a mess out of it as it's generating this report. While it's generating the report, I'll turn some of this other stuff off. We'll come back to it and look at it, see if it actually does generate that report for us. Improving system performance, routine maintenance, clean up, defrag, uninstall applications that you don't use, basically. Kind of like do spring cleaning on your machine occasionally. Clean the startup menu, and you do that with the MSconfig to do those. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting here is use safe mode to set the benchmark for the time for Windows to start. What they're saying is see how long it takes it to start in safe mode with minimum drivers, then start it in regular mode and see what the time difference is. If it is really a big time difference, you may want to look and see what's starting up on the system. It's on the system as you do those things. So hardware can support all of that stuff, performance warnings, investigate each issue. The visual settings we already looked at. Well, the visual settings here was to turn off arrow, which I had you do in the virtual machines. One of the places that you can go is in the registry and performance. We've been here in performance and information tools, right? If we go into advanced tools, you can get to all of these things that we've talked about. So those tools are available to you there. See, it had to generate this report. Mine's a mess. It's got all these things here. That application failure, this was just today, right? And if I click on it, Windows Explorer stopped responding and was closed, and in fact it did because I did it to it. Down here I have a warning that says Adobe Reader unsuccessful application reconfiguration, and you can look, check for solution, view the technical details of each of these things. These are just information things that happen. I have another one here that Windows was not properly shut down, and I'm sure I did that when I pushed the power button, because when I try to do things, I get really impatient. So I don't like to wait for it. Up here, way back when, we had one. Windows, boy, this one was really bad, right? Windows canceled a hung navigation and Microsoft Expression Web stopped working. So you can look and see if you have a historically problem application with these, or something. If you have some sort of repeating problem with your Windows machine. What they were talking about in the where was it? Plug and play memory leaks. I went too fast. Disable the indexer. We talked about that already. History of problems. This is where we were with that one. When we talk about visual improvement, that's talking about turning off arrow, and that's when you go and pick the Windows Classic as your visuals there. Disable the indexer. Plug and play memory leaks. This one is kind of, yeah, right, you can really do that. So watch it over a period of time. What you can do is start an application, close the application to see if it gives your memory back. When Windows starts an application, it takes memory, and it takes CPU. When you close an application, it's supposed to give you that memory back. If it's not giving you that memory back, it's called a memory leak. It's hanging on to it. It's not giving up the memory, and then you've got a bad application that you need to fix the memory leak, because it's one that just keeps taking and taking and taking until you do run out of memory in the Windows machine. You can watch that, and I would say start and stop things to see if it's happening. Consider using ReadyBoost. ReadyBoost is a flash drive that's put in. It acts as a buffer to speed access. It kind of is I think of it as kind of between physical RAM and page files. A little bit faster than page file, but it can help the performance of the machine. And it's just a matter of taking a flash drive and putting it in and say, and then right-click on it. What do you want to do with it? I want it to be a ReadyBoost. How much of it do you want to be a ReadyBoost? You might as well just make the whole thing a ReadyBoost. It will, and I've used this before on some not real powerful machines, and it did help. Helps me anyway. Disable the arrow interface. We talked about that. Disable, in Vista, disable the sidebar. Windows 7 doesn't have a sidebar. It does have gadgets that you can add to it. Manually removing software. Try the program's uninstall routine. Revo uninstaller is something that you might also want to have. What it does is uninstalls it, and then it goes and cleans up the mess that Windows doesn't. All the extraneous files, it'll go find them and will make them go away. It's also one that I don't know if you can. It has a portable version, but I don't know if you can. I don't know if it's at portable apps or not. It may be, but you can get a portable version of it, put on your flash drive, and uninstall programs that way. It gets rid of a lot more stuff when you do those things. This is one, delete the registry entries. This is one that to kind of really pay attention to what you're doing if you manually uninstall a program, particularly when you get into the registry. Deleting the folder is not a big deal, but when you get into the registry, you may want to be careful. Please make a backup of the registry before you do those things. In the registry, move the program from the all programs, removing the software. In the startup processes, we looked at that. MSconfig is what we're going to use in the startup processes to remove things. And it's just a matter really of unchecking it to tell it to not start. And then when it restarts, it won't be on the list of things that will get started. So I guess it's time for me to quit. A lot of tools here. Try them out. See what they do. A lot of tools to know about that are built in. There again, sysinternals has a lot more other tools that you can use with Windows.
Why would you go to the registry and be knowing that?
Well, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you get a virus, and the virus removal can't make it all go away. Some of these guys are really good at writing a virus. You actually have to go in and physically delete the executable from the registry to keep it from starting up when the machine starts up. That's just one example. The other one is the uninstall. The programs won't uninstall correctly. The registry entries are there. You've taken out all the files, deleted program files and all that, and it's trying to start a program, an executable that's not there. You got to go in and delete that executable from the registry. Yeah, those are the kinds of instances you would do that. The times that you have to do it are getting fewer and fewer compared to what they were 5 years ago, 6 years ago. There were a number of things. We had I forgot what it was. It was a Microsoft update for something that sometimes wouldn't finish. But it made registry changes, and the registry said it was being installed, even though it had not installed correctly. And when it's not installed correctly, it's supposed to take all that stuff out so that you can reinstall it again. You had to go into the registry and delete the yes, I'm installing it before you could actually do the install. So it happens occasionally for different reasons, but as much as possible, really do stay away from it. So it's a cool thing to look at. You can search for things, see what's in it, and it is I think you should browse through one occasionally just to see the kinds of stuff that goes into the registry, what's there. We do those things. So we did look at all those tools, I think, when we went through there, the reliability monitor, the performance monitor, the resource monitor, monitor, as we do those things. Again, lots of tools are available. The performance monitor you can use to monitor other machines as long as you have the administrative authority. So when you're a network administrator and you want to watch your servers, you can use the performance monitor to monitor your activity that's going on your server. Any questions? Probably time for a break, huh?